You think that thinking more makes you smarter, that considering every angle, every variable, every potential outcome will lead to better decisions. It doesn't. It makes you weaker. Every hour you spend analyzing is an hour your competition spends building. Every decision you delay is market position you surrender. Today you learn why excessive thinking is a production bottleneck, not strategic depth, and the protocol Ford used to cut decision time without cutting decision quality. Here's what's actually happening. Your brain has finite processing capacity. Think of it as a factory with limited machine hours per day. Every minute spent reconsidering a decision you've already analyzed is manufacturing time wasted on redundant processing. You're not being thorough. You're running the same operation multiple times and calling it precision. Ford's assembly line worked because each station performed one task, once, correctly, then moved the product forward. Your mental assembly line keeps pulling the same decisions back to the first station for re-evaluation. The line stops, output drops, and you convince yourself this is depth when it's actually systematic inefficiency. You're burning mental fuel without forward movement. Most people believe more thinking equals better thinking. This is false. Better thinking requires directed analysis toward a specific output followed by execution. More thinking without execution is just cognitive load with no deliverable. You're not building strategic advantage through endless consideration. You're building decision fatigue and opportunity cost. Every choice you revisit consumes mental resources that could be allocated to the next problem. Ford didn't spend 6 months deciding which shade of black to paint the Model T. He made a decision based on available data, locked it in, and moved to the next bottleneck. Pause here. Thinking is a tool. When you use a tool past its functional purpose, it becomes waste. You don't keep sanding wood after it's smooth. You move to assembly. Same principle applies to decisions. A decision becomes weaker the longer it sits in analysis after you have sufficient data for action. Ford ran his factories on this. Once you have enough information to make the call with acceptable risk, make it and execute. Holding the decision open past that point doesn't improve quality, it decays it. Why? Because while you're thinking, conditions change, opportunities close, and your competitors ship. Decision strength isn't measured by analysis time. It's measured by execution speed after reaching threshold confidence. You don't need perfect information. You need operational information and forward motion. Here's the execution system. Step 1. Set decision threshold before analysis begins. Define exactly what information you need to make this call. If it's choosing a vendor, your threshold might be 3 quotes, verified references, delivery timeline confirmed. Write this list before you start researching. This prevents infinite research loops. You're building decision criteria, not exploring philosophy. Step 2. Once threshold is met, decide within 24 hours. You have your criteria. You've gathered the data. Now you execute the decision within 1 day maximum. This forces prioritization. It prevents decision drift where you keep thinking about it indefinitely. Ford's rule. If you have the specs and the costs, decide and move. Delay past this point is inventory sitting in the warehouse, not quality control. Step 3. Log the decision and stop revisiting it. Write down what you decided and why. Then, close the file. If new information arrives that fundamentally changes the situation, you can revisit. But you don't get to second guess based on anxiety or hypothetical scenarios that haven't materialized. This is discipline. You made the call with the best available information. Now you execute and measure results. That's the only way to improve decision-making. Build, ship, observe, adjust for the next cycle. Example. Ford decided to standardize the Model T chassis in 1908. He had sufficient data showing production efficiency would improve. He locked the decision and spent the next decade optimizing around it instead of reconsidering the choice every quarter. Result, he cut production time from 12 hours to 93 minutes per vehicle by 1913. That's what happens when you decide and execute instead of deciding and redeciding. Ford built an empire not by thinking the longest, but by thinking precisely and acting fast. He understood that manufacturing capacity includes mental capacity. If you're using your cognitive resources to reprocess decisions you've already made, you're running an inefficient operation. The strongest position isn't the one with the most analysis. It's the one with the fastest decision-to-execution cycle at acceptable quality. You're not paid to think forever. You're paid to think effectively and ship. Set your thresholds, hit them, decide, move forward. That's the protocol. If this makes sense, apply it to one decision you've been sitting on this week. Run the 3 steps. Make the call. Then watch what happens when you stop weakening your position with endless reconsideration and start strengthening it with operational momentum.